If you ever call me, it means you're ready to leave your old life behind. That's what Jackwick told me the only time we met, and I remember laughing like it was a joke, like men like him only existed in stories whispered after midnight, not in real life, not in mine. But standing there in a pale blue bridesmaid dress, under chandeliers that cost more than my entire student loan debt, smiling for photos I didn't feel, I realized something terrifying. I had already left my old life. I just hadn't escaped it yet. The music was soft, something classical, violins, floating through the ballroom while waiters carried trays of champagne. Everything looked perfect, my sister glowing in white, guests laughing, glasses clinking, but my fingers were cold, numb, curled tight around my phone hidden against my thigh, because it had buzzed 3 times in the last minute, and I didn't need to look to know who it was. I knew the pattern, the persistence, the way silence felt heavier when his name was on the screen. I finally glanced down, just a second, just enough to read it, smile. Don't make me come find you. My stomach dropped like I missed a step on a staircase. My eyes lifted instinctively, scanning the room, hundreds of faces, strangers, family, friends, and somewhere in that sea, him, watching, waiting. I forced a smile when the photographer told us to lean in closer, my sister's hand warm around mine, her happiness so real it almost hurt to stand next to it. You okay? She whispered, and I nodded too quickly, too automatically. Yeah, just heels. I lied, because that was easier than the truth, easier than saying I felt like prey in a room full of people who didn't even know there was a hunter among them. Another buzz, sharper this time. Bathroom. Now, my heart started pounding so loud I was sure someone would hear it over the music, over the laughter, over everything. I excused myself with a quick apology, slipped past tables and chairs, past waiters and relatives, until I reached the hallway, quieter, dimmer, the sound of the reception fading behind me like I was stepping out of one world into another. I pushed into the restroom, locked the door behind me, and leaned against it, breathing hard, staring at my reflection under harsh white lights, perfect makeup, perfect dress, and underneath it all, the faint shadow of something I couldn't quite hide. My phone buzzed again. I didn't open it this time. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too much. Instead, I scrolled, past his name, past everything, to a number I had saved but never used, a number that felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. I hesitated, thumb hovering, remembering his voice, calm, controlled, dangerous in a way that didn't need to prove itself. Don't call me unless you mean it, he had said. And I didn't know what mean it really meant until now. Until this moment. Until the realization hit me that staying was no longer an option. I pressed call before I could change my mind. The ring felt too loud in the silence. 1 second, 2, 3. Then it clicked. No greeting, just presence, heavy and still. Like the air shifted on the other end. My voice came out smaller than I wanted, fragile. Can you come get me? There was a pause, not long, but enough to make my chest tighten. Then his voice, low, steady, like he had already decided before I even finished asking. Location. I swallowed, gave him the name of the venue, my voice barely above a whisper, and for a second, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe nothing would happen. Maybe I had imagined the power in his words. But then he said something that made my pulse stutter, something simple, quiet, final, stay where you are. The line went dead, and I stood there, staring at my reflection, realizing I had just done exactly what he warned me about. I had called him, and somewhere outside these walls, something had already started moving. I stayed there for a second after the call ended, phone still pressed to my ear like it might say something else, like he might take it back, but the silence on the line was different now, heavier, final, like a door had already closed somewhere I could not see. I slowly lowered the phone, my reflection staring back at me with wide eyes that did not look like mine, and for the first time all night I noticed how quiet it had become. Not completely silent, the music still filtered faintly through the walls, laughter distant and blurred, but something underneath it felt off, like the air itself had shifted, like a storm was building somewhere just out of sight. I pushed myself off the door, forcing my legs to move, because standing still felt worse, felt like waiting to be found. I unlocked the door and stepped into the hallway. The lights softer here, shadows stretching along the carpet, and I tried to act normal, tried to breathe evenly, but my heart would not listen. It kept racing, counting down to something I could not name. My phone buzzed again, and this time I froze, my fingers tightening around it as I looked down, his name lighting up the screen like a warning I could not ignore. I did not answer. I could not. Not after what I had just done. Not after who I had just called. The buzzing stopped. Then another message came through, slower this time, deliberate. "You think you can ignore me tonight?" My throat tightened. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting him to be standing right there. But the hallway was empty, just a waiter passing at the far end carrying a tray, not even looking at me. And yet the feeling did not go away. That sense of being watched, of being tracked, like every step I took was already known. I started walking back toward the ballroom, because hiding was not an option anymore. Because staying out here alone felt worse. Each step echoing softly against the carpet. My heels unsteady now, the door to the reception growing closer, the music louder, but something was wrong. I could feel it before I even pushed the door open. A tension that did not belong to weddings, a subtle shift in the rhythm of the room. Like the song was playing, but no one was really listening anymore. I stepped inside, and everything looked the same at first. People dancing, glasses raised. My sister laughing at something one of her friends said, but then I noticed the details, small. Things that did not fit. One of the security staff near the entrance was gone. The couple who had been arguing near the bar had disappeared, and a few guests were glancing toward the doors like they were waiting for something without realizing it. My phone buzzed again in my hand, and this time I did not need to read it. I already knew. I could feel it in the way the room seemed to hold its breath. I turned slightly, scanning the crowd again, searching for him. For the man who had made the last year of my life feel smaller, tighter, controlled. But I could not find him, which somehow made it worse, because it meant he was choosing when to be seen, choosing when to step out. And that kind of control was something I had learned to fear. I took a step back instinctively, my shoulder brushing against one of the pillars near the edge of the dance floor, my pulse pounding in my ears. And then it happened. Not loud, not dramatic, just a subtle change. The music did not stop, but it felt quieter. Conversations dipped just slightly, like a ripple moving through water, and I realized with a sharp, breathless certainty that it was not him causing it. It was someone else, someone who had not even spoken yet. I felt it before I saw him. That shift in attention, that invisible line being drawn through the room. And for the first time since I left the restroom, my fear changed shape. It was no longer just about being found. It was about what would happen now that I had been, because somewhere behind me, beyond the doors I had just walked through, Jack Wick had already arrived. I did not turn around right away because something in me understood that the moment I did, everything would change, and there would be no stepping back into the version of my life where I could pretend I still had control. So I stayed there for one breath, then another, fingers tightening around the edge of the pillar as the room continued moving in that strange, slowed rhythm, like a movie playing at half speed. And then I felt it, not a touch, not even a sound, just presence, heavy and certain behind me, the kind of presence that made space without asking for it, that pulled attention without raising a voice. And when I finally turned, I did not need anyone to tell me who he was. Jack Wick stood near the entrance like he had always been there, like the room had been built around him. Instead of the other way around, his suit dark, perfectly tailored, every line clean and deliberate. But it was not the way he looked that made people step aside. It was the way they reacted, conversations breaking mid-sentence, laughter fading into something quieter, respectful without being told to be. Even the staff moved differently, more careful, more aware, and his eyes found me immediately, not searching, not scanning, just knowing, like he had walked in already aware of exactly where I would be. My breath caught, not from fear this time, but from something sharper, something unfamiliar, like being seen in a way that left no room to hide. I realized then that I had expected chaos, something loud, something dramatic, but this was worse in its own way, because nothing had been said, nothing had been done, and yet the entire room felt different, controlled by something invisible. My phone buzzed again, pulling my attention down for a split second, and when I looked at the screen, the message was already there. There you are. My stomach dropped. I lifted my head quickly, scanning again, and this time I saw him, not far, stepping out from the edge of the crowd like he had been waiting for the exact right moment. His expression calm, almost amused, like this was all part of something he had planned. He started walking toward me, slow, confident, like he owned every step, and for a second my body forgot how to move, caught between two forces pulling in opposite directions. One I had known too well, one I had just called into my life. My instinct was to step back, but my heel caught slightly against the carpet, unsteady, and that was all it took. His hand closed around my wrist, not rough, not in a way that would draw attention, but firm enough to stop me, to remind me exactly where I stood. "You should not ignore me," he said quietly, his voice low enough that no one else could hear, but it carried that same weight I had learned to recognize, that subtle pressure that made everything feel smaller around it. I swallowed, my throat tight, my eyes flickering past him, past his shoulder, to where Jack Wick still stood, and for the first time, the two worlds I had been trying to keep separate collided in a single moment. His grip tightened just slightly, a warning, a question, I could not tell which. "Who were you talking to?" he asked, and I did not answer, because I did not know how to explain something I barely understood myself, because I did not know what it meant that Jack Wick was here, that he had come, that he had moved an entire room without touching it. My silence stretched just long enough to shift something in his expression, curiosity, sharpening into something colder, more focused, and then it happened, not fast, not sudden, just inevitable, like gravity taking hold. The pressure on my wrist disappeared, not because he let go, but because something made him, something unseen but undeniable. And when I looked back at him, really looked, I saw it, the smallest change in his posture, the way his attention flicked past me, over my shoulder, to the man behind me, to Jack Wick, and in that single second, I understood something I had never felt before. The fear I had been living with for so long had just found something stronger than itself, and it was no longer the only power in the room. The moment his grip disappeared, the air changed again, sharper this time, like something unseen had just drawn a line no one was allowed to cross, and I felt it all the way down to my bones. That quiet shift from control to uncertainty, not mine, not anymore. His hand fell back to his side, slow, deliberate, like he was deciding how to react instead of acting on instinct, and that alone told me everything I needed to know, because he had never hesitated before, not once. I turned fully then, my breath catching as Jack Wick took a single step forward, not rushed, not aggressive, just enough to close the distance between us without actually touching either of us. But somehow it felt closer than anything else in the room, his presence filling the space in a way that made everything else feel smaller, quieter, irrelevant. His eyes moved from me to the man in front of me, not with anger, not even with obvious threat, just a calm, measured look that somehow carried more weight than anything loud ever could, and for a second no one spoke. Not me, not him, not anyone nearby. Even the music felt like it had faded into the background, like the entire room was holding its breath without realizing why. "You are in the wrong place," Jack Wick said, his voice low, steady, controlled, not raised, not forced, but it carried across the small space between us like it belonged there, like it did not need permission. I felt my pulse spike at the sound of it, not from fear, but from recognition, because that was the same voice that had answered my call, the same voice that had told me to stay where I was. And now he was here, exactly like he said he would be. The man in front of me let out a small breath that almost sounded like a laugh, but it did not reach his eyes. "I think you have that backwards," he replied, trying to sound confident, trying to hold on to something that was already slipping. "This does not concern you." Jack Wick did not respond right away, and that silence stretched, heavy, deliberate, until it became its own kind of answer, until it forced attention, forced awareness, forced a realization that this was no longer a conversation between equals. I could feel people watching now, not openly, not directly, but enough to make the edges of the room feel closer, tighter, like everything was narrowing down to this moment. Jack Wick shifted his gaze back to me, just for a second, and something in his expression changed, softened in a way that was almost impossible to notice unless you were looking for it. "Are you coming with me?" he asked, not demanding, not commanding, just asking. But there was something underneath it, something that made the question feel like a choice that was not really a choice at all. My throat tightened, my mind racing, because for the first time all night, the decision was mine, not forced, not cornered, not taken, just offered. and that felt more overwhelming than anything else. I glanced back at the man beside me, at the familiar weight of everything. I had been trying to survive, the expectations, the control, the quiet fear that had shaped my days for too long. And then I looked at Jack Wick again, at the stillness in him, at the certainty that did not need to prove itself, and something inside me shifted, small but undeniable, like a door opening just enough to let light through. "Olivia." The voice beside me cut in, sharper now, more urgent. "You are not going anywhere." But it did not land the same way it used to, not with the same force, not with the same authority, because now there was something else in the room, something stronger, something that did not raise its voice and did not need to. Jack Wick did not even look at him this time. His attention stayed on me, unwavering, patient in a way that made the silence feel intentional, like he already knew what I would choose before I said it. My fingers curled slightly at my sides, the weight of the moment pressing in, and then I took a step, just one, small, but enough to change everything, enough to answer without words, enough to make it clear that I was no longer standing where I had been before. And as I moved, I felt it, that invisible line being crossed, that quiet, irreversible shift from one life into another. And somewhere behind me, the past I had been trying to hold together finally let go. The moment my foot moved, everything behind me felt distant, like the sound of the wedding, the music, the laughter, even my own name being called. It all blurred into something I could not quite hold on to anymore. And for a second I thought I might stop, might hesitate, might turn back and pretend none of this had happened. But I did not. I kept walking, one step closer to Jack Wick, one step further away from everything that had kept me small. And when I reached him, I realized something I had not expected. He did not reach for me right away. He did not grab my hand or pull me in. He simply stood there, giving me space, giving me the choice even now, even after everything. And somehow that made my chest tighten more than anything else, because I was not used to being given space. I was not used to being allowed to decide. I felt the weight of eyes on us, quiet, curious, uncertain, but no one stepped closer. No one interrupted. It was like an invisible boundary had formed around us, and no one wanted to cross it. Jack Wick glanced down briefly, his gaze settling on my wrist, on the faint marks I had tried to hide under makeup and long sleeves, and his expression did not change much, but something in his eyes sharpened, something colder, more focused, and then he looked back at me, steady, grounding. "We are leaving," he said, not loudly, not forcefully, but with a certainty that made it feel like the only logical next step, like the night itself had already decided it. I nodded before I even realized I was doing it, my body responding faster than my thoughts, because somewhere deep down, I already knew I was not staying. Not anymore. Not after calling him. Not after stepping toward him. Not after crossing that line I could never uncross. We turned together, and as we did, I felt it again, that shift in the room, like people were adjusting around us without being told to, creating a path that had not been there seconds ago. The music continued. The lights still glowed warm against polished floors, but everything felt different now, like I was seeing it from the outside instead of being trapped inside it. We had barely taken 2 steps when a voice cut through the quiet, sharper now, louder, desperate in a way I had never heard before. "Olivia, stop." I froze instinctively, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. The habit of listening, of stopping, of waiting for permission, it was still there, still wired into me, and for a second, just a second, I felt that pull. Again, that invisible chain tightening, trying to drag me back into place. But then I felt something else, not a touch, not exactly, just the presence beside me shifting slightly, closer, steady, and it grounded me in a way I could not explain. Jack Wick did not turn around, did not acknowledge the voice behind us. He simply paused, just enough for me to decide what I was going to do next, and that was when it hit me. Clear and undeniable. He was not going to fight for me. He was not going to argue or demand or force anything. He had already done his part by showing up, by standing here, by offering a way out. The rest was up to me. My fingers curled slightly at my sides, my breath uneven. And then I exhaled slowly, letting something go that I had been holding on to for far too long. I took another step forward, not back, not toward the voice calling my name, but away from it. And this time I did not stop, not even when the voice rose again, sharper, more insistent, because it no longer held the same power it used to. It no longer defined the direction I moved in. And as we walked, I felt it, that quiet, undeniable shift settling into place, not just in the room, not just in the moment, but in me, like something had finally realigned, like I had stepped into a version of myself I had been too afraid to become. We reached the doors, tall and polished, reflecting the soft glow of the chandeliers behind us. And for a brief second, I caught my reflection again. But this time it looked different, not perfect, not untouched, but stronger in a way I could not fully explain. Jackwick reached the door first, pushing it open without effort, the cool night air slipping in to meet us. And as I stepped toward it, I realized something that made my pulse quicken again, not from fear, but from the weight of what came next. Leaving was not the end of anything. It was the beginning of something I did not yet understand, something I had just chosen without knowing the cost. And as I crossed the threshold beside him, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. My life had just changed, and there was no going back. The night air hit me the second I stepped outside, cool and sharp against my skin, like it was trying to wake me up from something I had been stuck inside for far too long. And I did not realize how tight my chest had been until I could finally breathe again. Really breathe, not the shallow kind I had learned to survive on, but something deeper, something steadier. I wrapped my arms around myself instinctively, the thin fabric of my dress doing nothing to block the chill, and before I could even process it, something heavier settled over my shoulders, warm, solid, grounding. I looked down and saw his jacket draped around me, dark, expensive, carrying a faint scent that I could not quite place, clean but edged with something stronger, something that felt like him. I glanced up at Jackwick, but he was already looking ahead, scanning the street with that same quiet focus, like he had already calculated every possible outcome before we even stepped out here. The parking area stretched in front of us, lined with sleek black cars that reflected the soft glow of the building behind us. Engines running low, doors already opening before we reached them, like they had been waiting for this exact moment. And I felt it again, that shift, that reminder that his world operated on a completely different level, one where things moved before you asked, where decisions were made without hesitation, where hesitation itself did not seem to exist. I slowed slightly as we approached the nearest car, my steps faltering just enough to make him notice, because of course he noticed. He always did. He stopped without turning, just enough to acknowledge it, to give me space to catch up or to step back. And that pause said more than anything else could have. It was not pressure, it was not control, it was choice, again, always choice. And that almost made it harder, because I was not used to it, not used to being allowed to hesitate without consequences. My fingers tightened around the edge of his jacket, grounding myself in the weight of it, in the reality of where I was standing. And then I moved forward again, closing the small gap between us, choosing it this time without being pushed. One of the men by the car opened the door, stepping back immediately, his posture respectful but distant, like he understood exactly where his place was in this moment. And I hesitated again, just for a second, because stepping into that car felt like stepping into something bigger than I could fully understand, something that would not just take me away from tonight, but from everything I had known before it. Jackwick finally looked at me then, really looked, his eyes steady, searching for something I could not quite name. "Once you get in," he said quietly, his voice carrying easily through the stillness, "you do not go back tonight." It was not a warning, not exactly, more like a statement of fact, something simple and clear, something I could not pretend I did not understand. I swallowed, my pulse quickening again, not from fear this time, but from the weight of the decision sitting right in front of me. I glanced back over my shoulder without thinking, the doors of the venue still open behind us, lights spilling out into the night, laughter faint but still there, a reminder of everything I was leaving behind, my family, my sister, the version of me that had walked into that building hours ago, thinking I could keep everything balanced, keep everything contained. I knew now how wrong that had been. I turned back to him, to the man who had shown up when I asked, who had not demanded anything, had not forced anything, had simply stood there and let me choose. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something settle inside me, something quiet but certain. I nodded once, not dramatic, not hesitant, Just enough. And then I stepped forward, ducking slightly as I slid into the car, the leather seat cool against my skin, the door closing softly behind me with a finality that echoed louder than it should have, sealing me into a space that felt both unfamiliar and strangely safe at the same time. A second later, the other door opened and closed, and I felt him sit beside me. Not too close, not distant, just there, present, steady. The engine shifted slightly, the car beginning to move before I even had time to adjust. And as the building started to fade behind us, the lights growing smaller in the window, I realized something that made my breath catch again. This was not just leaving. This was crossing into something I could not see yet, something I had chosen without fully understanding. And sitting there in the quiet hum of the car, wrapped in his jacket, with the world I knew slipping further away with every passing second, I knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, there was no version of my life where Jack Wick was not a part of it anymore. The city lights blurred past the window in long streaks of gold and white, and I realized I had not said a single word since the car started moving. Not because I did not have questions, but because I did not know where to begin. Everything felt too big, too fast, like I had stepped into a current that was already carrying me somewhere I had never planned to go. I kept my hands folded in my lap, fingers lightly gripping the edge of his jacket like it was the only thing anchoring me to something real. The silence inside the car was not uncomfortable, but it was heavy, filled with things unspoken, and beside me, Jack Wick sat perfectly still, his posture relaxed but alert in a way that made it clear he missed nothing, his gaze fixed forward, watching the road even though someone else was driving. Like control for him was not about action, it was about awareness. I finally let out a slow breath, breaking the quiet just enough to make it feel like I could exist in it again. "You came," I said softly, the words sounding smaller than they felt. He did not look at me right away, and for a second I wondered if he would respond at all. But then his head tilted slightly. "Just enough. You called?" He replied, simple, direct, like that. Alone explained everything, like there had never been another option. I swallowed, my gaze dropping to my hands, tracing the faint lines where tension still lingered. "I did not think you would," I admitted, because part of me had expected nothing, had expected silence, had expected to be left exactly where I had always been. He shifted slightly beside me, not closer, not farther, just enough to draw my attention back to him. "I told you not to call unless you meant it," he said, and there was no judgment in his tone, just fact, just a reminder of something I had already known when I pressed that button. I nodded faintly, because he was right. I had meant it, even if I had not fully understood what that meant at the time. The car slowed slightly as it turned onto a quieter street, the noise of the main road fading behind us, replaced by something calmer, more controlled, and I felt my shoulders relax just a little, like my body was finally catching up to the reality that I was no longer there, no longer in that room, no longer within reach of everything I had been trying to escape. "Where are we going?" I asked after a moment, my voice steadier now, not as fragile as before. Jack Wick glanced out the window briefly before answering. "Somewhere you can breathe," he said, and something about the way he said it made my chest tighten again, because it sounded less like a destination and more like a promise. I let that sit for a second, letting the words settle, letting the meaning sink in, and then another thought pushed forward, one I could not ignore. "What happens now?" I asked quietly, because leaving was one thing, but what came after was something I could not see yet, something I did not understand. This time he did look at me, fully, his gaze steady, measuring, like he was deciding how much to say. "Now," he said slowly, "you rest." The simplicity of it caught me off guard. I blinked, my mind struggling to catch up, because I had expected something more complicated, something heavier, but instead he gave me something I had not had in a long time. Permission to stop, permission to not be on edge, permission to just exist without waiting for the next thing to go wrong. I felt something in my chest loosen at that, something I had not realized was still so tight. I leaned back slightly against the seat, the leather cool beneath me, my eyes drifting toward the window again as the city continued to move around us. Different now, quieter, like I was seeing it from a distance instead of being trapped inside it. And for the first time all night, my breathing slowed, steady, and even, not forced, not controlled, just natural. I closed my eyes for a second, just a second, letting the moment settle, letting the exhaustion I had been holding back finally catch up to me. And as I did, I felt it again, that quiet presence beside me, steady, unmoving, certain, like a line drawn between what I had left behind and what I was stepping into. And even though I did not know where this road was leading, even though I did not understand what came next, I knew one thing with a clarity that cut through everything else. I had called him, and he had answered, and somehow, that had changed everything. When the car finally slowed, I felt it before I saw it, that subtle shift in motion, the quiet deceleration that made everything inside me tighten. Just slightly again, not out of fear, but anticipation, like something was about to be revealed that I was not fully prepared for. I opened my eyes, not even realizing when I had closed them, and looked out the window. The city had changed, the noise replaced by something quieter, streets wider, buildings taller and more distant, the glow of lights softer here, controlled, deliberate, like everything existed exactly where it was meant to be. The car turned once more and then came to a smooth stop in front of a building that did not need to announce itself to be understood, glass and steel rising into the night, clean lines, minimal design. But there was something about it that made it feel untouchable, like the kind of place people did not just walk into. I stayed still for a second, my hand resting lightly against the seat as I took it in. The door opened before I could reach for it, the same quiet efficiency as before, and I stepped out slowly, the cool air brushing against my skin again. But this time it felt different, calmer, like I was no longer running from something, but stepping into something else entirely. Jackwick stepped out beside me, his presence immediate, grounding, and for a moment neither of us moved. We just stood there in front of the building, the city stretching out behind us like something distant and unreachable. I looked up at it, then back at him, searching for something in his expression, some hint of what this place meant. But as always, he gave very little away. "This is where you stay tonight," he said simply. And there it was again, that tone, not a question, not an order, just certainty, like the decision had already been made, and all that was left was for me to accept it. I nodded slowly, because I did not have the energy to question it. And more than that, I did not want to. Something inside me had already decided to trust this, even if I did not fully understand why. We moved toward the entrance, the doors opening before we reached them, quiet and seamless. And as I stepped inside, the world shifted again, the air warmer, the lighting softer, everything designed with a precision that felt almost unreal, like I had stepped into a space where nothing was left to chance. I felt out of place immediately, not because I did not belong, but because I had never been anywhere like this before. I adjusted the jacket around my shoulders, the weight of it still grounding me, still reminding me that I was not here by accident. We crossed the lobby in silence, the sound of our footsteps muted against polished floors, and I noticed the way people moved around him. Not in fear, not exactly, but in awareness, like they understood who he was without needing to be told, like his presence carried its own kind of authority that did not need to be explained. We reached the elevator and it opened instantly. No waiting, no hesitation, just another small detail that made it clear this world did not operate like the one I had come from. Inside, the space felt even quieter, enclosed, private, and as the doors closed, I felt it again. That moment of separation, like each step forward was taking me further from everything I used to. No, the elevator moved smoothly, barely noticeable, and I found myself watching the numbers change without really seeing them, my mind still catching up to everything that had happened. When the doors opened again, it was onto a hallway that felt even more removed from the outside world. Dim lighting, soft tones, everything calm, controlled. We walked down it slowly, and when he stopped in front of a door, I felt my breath catch just slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what it represented, a place to stop, to rest, to exist without looking over my shoulder. He opened it without hesitation and stepped aside just enough for me to enter first, and that small gesture, that quiet allowance of space, said more than anything else could have. I stepped inside, the room warm, still, untouched, and as I turned back toward him, standing just inside the doorway, I realized something that settled deep in my chest. This was not just a place to stay, it was a line, a boundary, between what I had been and what I was becoming. And standing there, wrapped in his jacket, with the door still open behind him, I understood that whatever came next, it would not be something I could walk away from easily, because for the first time, I was not just being protected, I was being pulled into something far bigger than myself. I did not step any further into the room at first. I just stood there, just inside the threshold, like crossing fully into that space would make everything too real, too permanent. And for a moment I became aware of how quiet it was, not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that feels intentional, controlled, like nothing entered this space without permission. I turned slowly, taking in the room, the soft lighting, the clean lines, everything in its place, untouched, like it had been waiting, not just for anyone, but for me specifically. And that thought should have unsettled me, but instead it did something else entirely. It made me feel seen in a way I had not felt in a long time. I pulled his jacket tighter around me without thinking, grounding myself in the weight of it, in the presence of him still standing just behind me, not moving forward, not closing the distance unless I allowed it. And that detail stayed with me. The way he gave space even here, even now. Like control for him was not about taking, but about knowing exactly when not to. I turned back to face him, my fingers brushing lightly against the edge of the fabric at my collar. "You always do that," I said quietly, my voice softer now, steadier than before. He looked at me, his expression unreadable at first. "Do what?" he asked, and I let out a small breath, almost a laugh, though there was nothing humorous about it. "Show up like everything is already handled," I said, and for a second, something shifted in his gaze, something subtle but real, like he understood exactly what I meant without needing more explanation. "It usually is," he replied, simple, certain, and that confidence should have felt overwhelming. But instead it settled something in me, something that had been restless for too long. I nodded slowly, absorbing that, letting it sink in. And then the question I had been holding back finally pushed forward. "And me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper now. I handled too." The words hung in the air between us, heavier than anything else we had said so far. And for the first time since I met him, he did not answer immediately. His gaze shifted slightly, not away from me, but deeper, like he was considering something beyond the surface of the question, something that mattered more than the words themselves. "No," he said finally, his voice quieter than before, but no less certain. "You are not something to handle." And that answer landed in a way I did not expect. Not sharp, not overwhelming, but steady, like something being placed exactly where it belonged. I felt my chest tighten, not from fear, but from something else entirely, something I did not have a name for yet. I looked down for a second, gathering myself, because everything about this moment felt different, unfamiliar, and yet strangely right. "Then what am I doing here?" I asked, more to myself than to him. But he heard it anyway. Of course he did. He always did. He took a step forward then, just one, closing the distance slightly, but still not touching me, still leaving that space between us, that choice. "You asked for help," he said, and there was something in his tone now, something softer beneath the control. I answered. I let those words settle, felt the simplicity of them against everything complicated I had been trying to understand, and for the first time all night, I realized I did not need all the answers right now. I did not need to understand everything about him, about this world, about what came next. I just needed to accept what was right in front of me. I lifted my head again, meeting his gaze fully this time, and something in me shifted, not fear, not hesitation, but something closer to trust, raw and new and fragile, but real. I took a small step further into the room, away from the door, and that movement felt louder than anything else, like a quiet declaration I did not need to say out loud. He watched me, not stopping me, not guiding me, just there, present, steady, and as I moved, I realized something that settled deep in my chest. This was not about being saved, not entirely. It was about choosing something different, choosing a life that did not revolve around fear, choosing a path that I did not fully understand yet, but one that I had stepped onto willingly. And as the door behind him finally closed, soft but final, I knew that whatever this was, whatever he was, whatever we were becoming in this moment, it had already begun, and there was no version of me that would ever be the same again.